We're online. Well, we're always online, aren't
We're
we?
on Twitch. I hit the button.
Okay, I'm looking at Twitch. I still see our cool little...
This is our warm-up, you know.
shadow.
This is our warm-up before the warm-up.
Yeah. My hands are... That's
Twitch.
good. Twitch.
There we go. I'm on.
What is the date today anyway? It's the 6th.
6. Yes.
It says offline.
You're so chopping.
Yes,
Me
yes.
or him?
I am.
Oh.
Not
Yeah,
you,
what,
Brian. Brian, you're
let me
fine.
Go find a wire, you guys.
Whoever
you guys
you're stealing
discuss.
internet from, Brian, it's working great.
Yeah,
Dang
that's
it.
live now. There we go.
So,
Yes.
who's in the chat, by the way?
I don't know yet. I'm getting in there, but I told you that I was stealing internet, right?
Yeah.
Ah,
mean,
that's
it's
the
good to-
funniest thing.
It's good.
Well, I didn't even know I was doing it.
I'm laughing at Mark. That's pretty funny. Yeah, Twitchers, how are you twitching tonight?
Twiddle.
Did you figure out how to get over to Twitch?
I'm on Twitch and I don't see the damn chat.
Well,
says-
it's over in the corner. You have on the right. You gotta click the
Oh, I
thingy.
gotta do this thing.
It's
Yeah, isn't there like a pop out? There we go.
yeah, no. And I think it remembers from the last time you were there.
Popped it out.
Yeah. See, Whiskey Flipper says, Brian, I have a Canadian boner for that jersey. Dave Elope made those. He hasn't been on in a long time.
I wouldn't have changed, but I was pretty sweaty. So I got out of the scrubs.
I appreciate it.
A little different. Although I think all night my shirt's going to be appearing and disappearing. I'm like watching myself with the
Mark, you have no
It's not-
sound now.
mixing up the background.
I don't know what happened.
But the good news is Mark is no longer choppy.
Hey,
Yeah.
can you see? Can you see?
Yeah, I think it's much better, whatever you did.
I hooked up a wire. You saw me.
You got to turn off the Wi-Fi on your iMac. Make sure it's not
I
doing.
did.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. There's no. I don't want it to fall back.
I think you might be just choppy because you're in Houston today. Well, Part-
Yeah, it's.
Yeah.
It's tough out.
Tilly's Arcade. Hey, bros. Hey, what's up?
Yo.
So we got.
up,
Yo.
We have a.
Mr. Peabody. Everybody's red. I like it. Metropolis.
Yeah. Well, they're
Good.
kind of like variations of red and orange
There we
and
go.
off red. Yeah.
I got to get used to the whole getting everything organized with Twitch because it's a little different layout here. But I think I'm good. I'm comfortable now.
Yeah.
Feeling better
Feels-
about myself.
Comfy.
Cool.
Dang, I'm just wearing my generic Minnesota shirt. I have a different one to wear. Let me show you.
All right.
During when you get this thing on the road, I'm gonna put it on. Let me see. If I can do it. Here's what it's gonna look like. Come on. Can you see that?
Excellent. Looks like a Beavis and Butthead T-shirt.
That's right.
Oh,
I'll Mike Judge.
That's right.
pretty. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah. I can't wait. I mean, I have other shirts ready for, future episodes, I guess.
the PA I was working with today was telling us in the OR that he has his kids walking around with their shirt pulled over their head yelling, I am Cornholio.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I want to do that right now. It's not easy.
He's sitting there going like, one day they're going to hate me when they figure out what it actually means.
Oh.
I think I'm having a bandwidth problem here at the home base.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean I'm not looking sweet and
You're not.
So,
It's not entirely your fault, is what I'm saying. So, hey, we got Brian, you've been gone a while.
Oh yeah.
So what's
I
up
mean-
with that?
I know I've been, hospitals.
Yeah.
Hospitals are not my favorite
Hospital
place.
Stuff.
I don't like hospitals. In general, I think hospitals are a terrible idea.
I kind of like them. My mom actually had to take her to the hospital last weekend. She her blood pressure had popped up a little bit, and she's like, "Hey, pull the hospital trigger." And I'm like, "All right, fine. Are you sure you don't want me to drive?" And she said I couldn't stabilize her like a whole crew on an ambulance. So I'm like, "All right, fine." So she's fine.
It's really interesting. Mark, why did that do that this week?
Why did my mom go to the hospital? Or
Yeah, why did you know?
Well, my mom's a triage nurse, so she's super bitchy, and let me just say, she was not nice to anybody. They were like, it was like, arr.
I don't know why, but the bounding box is not set on your individual thingy bob, so that's really annoying.
Bounding.
Yeah.
So you're unbound.
Yep.
Oh, but it looks pretty good. I like that.
Yeah.
My
So,
arcade historian. Sweet.
So does this like zoom into us when we talk now? I'm not talking anymore.
no, I mean, it does. I mean, you go ahead and talk if you want. But
yeah, Brian, is that a real? That's not a real gauntlet behind you. That's just a photo, right?
That's mine.
But at Starcade.
It is at Starcade.
Man, the way they had that wall for that place, it's very sweet.
Yeah, it did work out. We looked at another building. We actually looked at a roller rink we almost bought.
Oh man, I guess hold up for what are you doing? But
well, we didn't end up buying it. So
too pricey?
No, we actually got beat to the punch.
Oh.
But it was a giant clear span ceiling. So there was like a roller rink with no beams and a big white ceiling.
Can you imagine, like, if you could somehow put arcade games on wheels and have people, like, in the roller rink skating with the game and playing it, and then, like, they let go and it hits the wall, or...
Well, here's what I thought would be fun is in the roller rink. So you're going to have the arcade on one side. And because it's this huge clear span white ceiling, I thought it would be awesome to have, like, seats down one side that reclined and project movies to the ceiling while people were roller skating.
Nice.
Yeah, right.
Would they be VHS movies, or?
Did you guys see my
What?
You should check out the Twitch right now when I switch to me. It's pretty funny.
Guy looking. I see.
Adam last name Hair.
Someone said I should add umlauts.
Adam last name Hair.
And then we have this guy coming up here in a bit.
We looked at the Fun Zone actually.
Yeah.
It was out in Woodbury. Somebody asked if we were buying Woodbury lanes, so we did not in the end. Am I missing some? I didn't see anybody say you should do umlauts. Oh, before.
Yeah, I didn't just magically do that like 2 seconds ago, Brian. I've been working on this show for weeks.
I know I have to hear about it.
Yeah, you do. You got a little DR syndrome, doctor syndrome, we call that. Rolling in.
I thought it was disaster recovery syndrome. But
Dan Reed syndrome.
Oh, damn it, Dan Reed.
Oh, wow. There you go. Here, let me turn the lights off. I don't have sunglasses.
He didn't wear sunglasses. He just hid in the dark. It was really weird.
It was really dark.
And it was weird. Wasn't it weird?
I felt like he was rebelling. He was totally Cameron Fry from Ferris Bueller's Day Off every time.
He'll keep calling me.
He's not going to leave me alone. Man, are you Ferris? Is that the way it works?
Me? Or him?
Me? I'm Ferris Bueller. Yeah.
It was prior to your arrival, Brian. So.
Oh, yeah.
My tenure.
Yeah, which Ferris Bueller character are you? Let's go. Who do you think you are?
I'm Sloan.
You're Sloan.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe about 15 years ago, I'd have gone with Ferris, but I don't know anyone as fat as I am on that movie.
Hey, Matthew is also caught up with you, so you're good.
Good. He's a little heavier these days.
Yeah, he's very comfortable.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm not. Hey, guess what? I think that's enough warming up. I think we should move on.
Oh, good. I can change my shirt.
All right.
So...
Here we go.
Live from KOYR Studios in Minneapolis, Minnesota, this is Arcade Radio.
Beware, I live. Run.
You survived.
Yeah, we did survive. Hello, and thanks for listening in from the Arcadosphere. This is Season 5, Episode 15 of the Arcade Radio Podcast. Today is Thursday, May 6th, 2021, and the time is now approximately 7:27 p.m. Central. I'm your host, Adam PlayStation. I'm joined by my co-host, Mark. I'm just starting the second coat now. Shields, and Paradise Arcade Shop proprietor and Soylent Green chef Brian Thurston Howell Armitage III. And joining us tonight, he's the winner of the Academy of Interactive Arts and Sciences Pioneer Award, arcade video game designer of numerous classics, first employed by Atari Inc. and later at Atari Games. An overall and all-around great guy. Ladies and gentlemen, Ed Logg will be joining us about 8 o'clock tonight. So, a little golf clap there? Yeah.
Clap.
Oh, yeah. Got a golf clap for that. So, welcome to the show, everybody.
Welcome to the shoe.
Welcome to the show. Oh. Whoa.
Ooh,
All right, I need somebody else to go first because I got to go get a prop.
I will go first.
All right.
All right. So, as everybody knows, on my TikTok, Spacetime Junction, I have been restoring a video vendor, and so I ended up learning that the printer wasn't working. There was multiple problems. The mech to advance paper was sort of chewed up, and also the PCB, some jerk had like shotgunned 5 IC chips, did not socket them, screwed up all of the pads, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go to eBay, and I found the exact same PCB. It was in like a water treatment, like a giant device for checking water treatment, but it printed out like, you know, the status of whatever was in your water. Identical hardware. It must be obviously generic. So I bought that PCB after some haggling, and then after some yelling at the guy for not mailing it immediately and waiting 2 weeks. Oh man, my wife has brought beers. Ghost in the Machine. Got that.
Nice.
Course. Are you glad you're not on camera? You don't want to come on camera? No. Come on camera? Okay, fine. Maybe next week? Okay. She says I'm not like you.
That video vendor is something else, though.
Yeah, so the guy I finally got the PCB like a few days ago and the mech, and I actually also bought a replacement head for my printer, but it turned out it was also in the mech, so I have a spare print head. Put it all together, and it worked. So now I can, now you know, one of the major like kind of things that I think made the guy stop trying to rent out tapes in the 90s, that was fixed. And then I also traced some problems with the transport. The tape actually has a transport that goes out, grabs the tape, and then puts it into a door for you. It wasn't going right or up. I traced the issue from the computer to two separate ICs, and then at the third IC in the flow, the signal just got lost. It didn't go to the output. So it was like, okay, well, obviously there's something wrong here. The thing is, that chip that failed, all it's responsible for is lighting up an LED. Like when it receives a signal, it lights up the LED, and then it lets the signal go through, to continue its journey, right? But it was stopping, so the signal was dying on that chip. And I had my doubts. I'm like, come on, there's no way a chip that just lights up LEDs is causing my problem. But it turned out, yes, I replaced them this afternoon, and the whole thing is working 100%. So pretty crazy times.
That is
Very nice.
Crazy.
Yes. So you can now rent out VHS tapes.
Correct.
That's awesome.
I still have some more to open. I think I've received about 40 tapes from fans, so that's pretty awesome. Oh my God! I've received 80 tapes. One person sent 45 tapes in one box.
Your video of the tapes is funny.
He's got a couple of videos of tapes.
I know.
That's awesome.
Make it interesting. If you're gonna put up with me opening a box of some old junk, I might as well make it interesting.
I've never understood these product opening videos.
Right.
It's like people sit there. It's almost like they're when you got a 2-year-old and the most interesting thing is the box at Christmas. Oh. They're like, oh, look what's in here. It's like, we know what's in there.
Right. Well, I mean, early on when Apple's products, you would open them up, their boxes were pretty cool, right? But now it's sort of like, if you don't have a designer that's just in charge of making the box opening experience cool, then you're like nobody.
Yeah, I mean, so it's funny though, is we package up the Impresses, those little acrylic fight sticks, and people have done box opening videos with those.
I've seen them; they're awesome.
It's wrapped in, wrapped in bubble wrap in a box.
Right. It's like, I mean, I guess if you ever know you're going to send it to a known streamer, you should put little puzzles in it or something. Or
yeah. Actually, you should do is, you ever seen those? My mother sent this box my son opened up, and stuff flies all over the place. They have these little butterflies you wind up with a rubber band. That's what I should put in there.
Oh yeah.
It's boom,
or just put cicadas in there. Come on, make it fun.
Hey guys!
Oh my God, there's a living bug in here.
I have some good news about tonight.
Yeah.
I ate food.
Oh, real food.
Yep. I figured I should stay awake for the Atari guests.
Have you been fasting or awake and sober? That's our new rule, right?
Right, exactly.
Wait. I was not a part of the vote on these rules.
Whatever, you're going to be operating tomorrow. You got to be sober.
By tomorrow, that's a long time.
By tomorrow, I could fly a plane. All right, so am I going next? What's going on?
Yeah, you're in.
All right, so this is kind of cool. Yeah, so I ordered bezels. I think I mentioned that on the show last week, and they arrived. So I got my Jungle Hunt bezel, which I'm very happy with. But this I had to bring up. So DB Fishman, do you guys know that guy? Who that guy is? He's
DB Fishman, no relation to DB Cooper, but
no, but he's in these collectors groups, and he decided to make Monaco GP Stand Edition, or as we like to call them, cabarets. Bezels for those because they were often burned by cigarettes, because in the 70s apparently that's all you could do is smoke cigarettes while playing video games.
I have cigarette burns in my computer space right in the little little nape.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of actually cool, except for it's also kind of gross. So I have always kind of wanted to replace the bezel on, because also it's spiderweb from being plexiglass, and cleaned over and over and over again. So anyway, I bought one of his bezels, and he made a first run where he printed the instructions. There's a little metal instruction card on the cabaret, and he printed those on his because he didn't have them. And then I think a lot of people were like, well, what if we have those and we just want the bezel? So he went ahead and made new ones, and he made 4 or 5 runs to get it perfect. And I have to tell you, the result is quite awesome. So this is the bezel. It has the proper metallic finish on there.
Ooh.
You see that? So here I am.
Oh, I can see her.
And then on the back, I mean, you can tell he
Wow.
I mean, there's no difference between this and the original. I can't tell. I put it up against it. I'm like, I can't wait to take my Monaco GP apart. Now I might actually put the artwork on that thing.
Oh man, isn't it like a chore to take it apart? Like all of the components are like in the same little 12 by 12 inch space or something.
Yeah, and there's bolts all over the side, and you know you have to be methodical about how you take it apart because you got to put. Anyway, it's going to be a task. Brian, what have you been working on?
Yeah.
What? Me? Who?
What?
Yeah, you. Deer caught in headlights.
So I went and bought out a guy who had been selling games for years, and he put an ad on Craigslist that I've got 16 bins of arcade parts. You know, does anybody want them? And I called him, got in touch with him. We agreed to, tentatively set a price at $1,000 for all these parts. And I went up there. Literally, so I get there and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I have 24 bins."
Uh-huh.
And so we started unpacking these things, and oh my gosh. I mean, so what's funny is the only really interesting PCB I got is there was a tugboat PCB tucked in one of these bins. There was some turkey shoot parts, which the little optical thing, and I have something like 50 to 60 MCR power PCBs, and I think like 60 or so AR2s at this point.
Oh man.
But it was kind of fun. This guy was really interesting. The stories he had were kind of fascinating. I did pick up, it's over there, one of the Bally coil board, like the coil board testers, the old ones. These like brown boxes that you would put the PCB on, and you could test it outside the machine, which is kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
But it was one of those things where like every box we'd go into, I'm like, oh, is there gonna be something good in here? And it's like another 18 power supplies. Awesome.
Oh.
And I'm sitting there, and he was nice enough that he actually said, if it doesn't seem worth it to you, like let me know, we'll drop the price. And when we were done, I counted up so much stuff. I'm like, even if I sold them for $5 a piece, the number of power supplies was absurd. So anyhow, it was kind of fun. Thought I'd have a lot more interesting stuff from there, but unfortunately there wasn't. The other really exciting news is that Jamie Scher 2 weeks ago. So I go home tomorrow night. I'm in Colorado, going back to Minnesota, and on Monday, Azterac shows up at the house.
Ooh.
And so I have it's actually in Rose, like tracking it. It went from Tacoma to Brighton, Colorado, which sucks. That's like 10 miles that way. I'm like, I could have just gotten it.
Right.
To Illinois, and it's now in Roseville, Minnesota. So yes, it's like right there. And I really was, it was really tempting to drive, like find out where it was at Brighton and just bring it here, but I didn't. So Monday I will be doing an unboxing video of Azterac.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those. You know what I hate about unboxing videos is that people who like to brag about their shit do them all the time.
Yeah.
That's what I hate about
I
them.
I hate the penises. Oh wait, no.
That's right. Get it out of your system. That's right.
I'm not talking about penises when Ed Logg gets here.
No, we're not. In fact, he might not. If he's watching this show right now, I'm pretty sure he's not going to tune in.
Like,
Ed, we're just kidding.
it was nice.
Thousands of viewers, Ed. We will fulfill your life. Come. Adam's like, shut up, Shields.
I don't think I've ever called you by your last name, Shields.
That's my people at work for some reason call me Shields and Shieldsy.
Shieldsy.
That's the Minnesota guys.
Yeah, that's funny.
Dude, Shieldsy, get over here. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I get called by my last name at work. Last name here.
Nice.
Andrew B tells me I gotta post it on Facebook for the likes.
Well, I think we should move on to the gadgets because we got a lot of squeeze in here before.
We do. Let's go. Come
right.
on. I've got a prop.
I always felt that the true
That's what we say
stars at Atari was engineering.
So, you're an inventor.
Yes, I am.
What have you invented?
A lot of things.
Like?
Like a lot of things. Like things that you've heard of.
Like?
Well, things that you will have heard of, okay? Patents are pending.
Arcade gadgets with Brian McLeod.
I'm gone for like one show, and we have animation.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. All right, that's cool. That's cool. All right, so hey, first product of the day.
Yeah.
Prop here.
Oh, you're vanishing. It doesn't recognize you as human anymore. Wait.
I need. Can you see this?
No.
So a little bit.
I made these invisible panels. They're pretty awesome.
Yes.
You should buy them.
I love Harry Potter. It's the best.
I love invisible patterns.
I'm gonna get rid of my background for a little bit here. There we go. All
Ah,
right.
Oh,
you get to
yeah.
see the,
Oh,
the real place. The hellhole.
the brown couch. Oh
Well,
my gosh.
it at least explains why you're in a hole.
Well, I can't have a wired connection anywhere else.
The sofa looks delicious.
Dragon
Okay.
Sphere panels, Pac-Mania panels, Galaga 88 panels. They're done. They fit. They fit perfectly. They're wonderful. We're ordering them up. They'll be black powder coated with clips on the bottom, but there we go.
Nice.
So that should be fun. We
That-
also will do a version with 2 joysticks because I'm going to build myself a Dragon Saber cabinet. So there will be a 2 joystick version. The other, so moving on in product, now that I've goofed my screen up to pull Skype up here. So moving on in products, I don't know if anybody's been on Facebook looking at this, but Jason Kopp and one of his friends have worked out an Omega Race emulator on a Teensy.
Yes.
For those of you who don't know what Teensy is a 32U4 chip based kind of small Arduino board. And they can be used for a variety of things, but they've managed to get this thing running. And I haven't looked at the price of Teensies lately, but I mean, it's down at like China mass produces them like they're vomiting them out. So they're like $5 to $10 a piece. It's actually cheaper to buy the board than the components on the board. So that's kind of cool. He's been very particular about the clock counts on the game running. But his vector rendering, he says he's cleaned up even better than the originals. There's some kind of funny arguments back and forth about that. But anyways, really cool kind of idea using an Arduino board to generate vectors. I thought that was kind of fun. Moving on, Alan 1 actually dropped a little teaser of their new game, Jousting Heroes. Oh, go ahead. Did I miss something? Alan 1, so who was a guest on the show several months ago, and announced they're going to be working on some games, has kind of dropped a sneak peek at their of their new game. You can go to Alan 1 or you can go on KLOV. They have links to it from both places. It's essentially a combination of Gauntlet, Joust, and a few other classic games. Allows up to 8 players to joust to the death. It's pretty neat. With being, if you're knocked off the bird, your knight can be reborn by the bird dropping an egg. They're hatched kind of like in Joust. There's a lot of cool ideas. They've got some fun stuff. They're planning for a project release date of May 29th, 2021. So, and
May
yeah.
May 29th this month?
Yeah, coming up soon. They've got pictures of the screens. I didn't see any videos. I wanted videos.
Oh.
But I think so. It's kind of interesting. I mean, I haven't. So I've played Killer Queen, but not enough to really know much about it. These multiplayer games seem to be becoming more and more popular with people. And I mean, Killer Queen has done awesome, and in some places not so popular. In Minnesota, you can't get near a machine when they're out and running. It's just there's.
Yeah.
So, and finally, the last product, which I thought was pretty cool.
Do you need another 15 minutes for your segment? Because I can maybe not give it to you.
Last product, go.
Yeah,
Go ahead. Go
Just
ahead.
ignore and plow through.
On KLOV. Comparison has released, this announced February 10th, 2021, but basically hardware to clean up the sounds in your Outrun, Turbo Outrun, and Hang On. So redoing the circuitry, running it through a separate board, and basically allowing you to produce high-quality sounds out of the system. He said he noticed that while he was playing on MAME, the sounds were great. Playing on the hardware, they weren't so great. Looked at the circuit for cleaning up the sounds and delivering the sounds. And it was terrible.
I have never experienced a sound problem playing Outrun.
It's not that there's sound problems. It's just they're slightly distorted. They're not as clean as they could be. And that's because of the processing circuit that generates them.
That sounds like a waste of time to me.
Wow.
Very well.
To whoever that was, that's a waste of time. Because you know what? Outrun is fun the way it was built. That's why people like it. They didn't sit in front of it and go, gosh, I really hate magical sound. Wait, I hate magical sound shower. I'm never going to listen to that again.
Well, here's the thing. It generates the sounds cleanly, and then they used a shitty-ass chip for processing them.
I think Mark is floating away.
And then pushes it out.
That's amazing. All right.
Mark's on his way out the door.
The arcade news, arcades, pinball, industry alumni, arcade openings, selecting, celebrities, world record holders, operators, coin-out, conventions. The arcade news.
We interrupt the ventilated development.
And now, the arcade news with Kevin Stevens.
Well, you know, normally we'd have a bunch of news articles, but we don't have any time. So, we're gonna skip the news.
There's 2 short articles.
They're not short. Did you read them?
The second one's short.
Yeah, they're not short. I looked at them. They're not short.
I can read it right now. It's there right in front of you at the very time that the GPS navigation.
No.
Save it for next week.
Yeah. Well, I can't because, you know, this one article is actually, like, legitimately topical.
You're complaining about it more than just doing it.
So I'm going to paraphrase. So howtogeek.com says, did you know the GPS triangle cursor comes from Atari's Asteroids? What? Does anyone know the game that the guest was famous for tonight?
Yes.
It's called Asteroids. So it's there right in front of you every time you use a GPS navigation. A triangle-shaped cursor representing your location on a GPS display. I feel like we all know what a GPS looks like, so I'm going to go on to the next paragraph. And it says, the triangle-shaped navigational cursor featured in many GPS, for Christ's sake, it looks like an asteroid ship, okay? It's pretty freaking cool.
This whole article is about how it was stolen from asteroids. We have to ask Ed Logg. Ed, how do you feel about the asteroid shape being stolen for GPS?
I mean, I feel like, you know, this article describes that ship like 8 times.
It does, yes.
It's like, so, you know the triangle in the GPS? You know the triangle in the GPS? It looks just like that.
I got it.
It's just ridiculous. Anyway, I think we'll save the next one for next week. Well, I guess it is FPGA Gauntlet, though.
Right?
All right. Hackaday.com. Gauntlet is a well-known arcade game. Oh, my God. We need to fucking write our own copy. Excuse my French.
If you want to rewrite the article, let me know, because
No, that's fine. I'll rewrite it. I just need to freaking do my homework. I'm sorry. I had very little time to prep. And Mark, you're a godsend. I just want to tell you right now, if this show would not exist if it was not for Mark and that other guy in the corner.
I wrote the show and desoldered a video vendor PCB at the same time.
I know, dude. And I was impressed by your troubleshooting on that thing. I wanted you to go in more detail, but we don't have to.
I have more detail.
This show has been derailed so badly. I think we got to move on to the next segment.
Let's go.
Back in '82, I used to be able to throw a pigskin quarter mile.
Back to the cave with Time Runner.
Why are things so heavy in the future? Is there a problem with the Earth's gravitational pull?
Hey, everybody. I've just got a little did you know segment for you. It's did you know that Atari's Video Pinball simulated the game by using a half-silvered mirror with a monitor below the mirror and graphics for the playfield above the mirror? And I mean physical graphics on a board, LEDs, pretty crazy stuff. The monitor would show the flippers and ball, which gave the impression the white ball was on the playfield. And it actually had LEDs controlled by the program, and it simulated lit targets. In addition, the control panel was hinged, which allowed the player to nudge the cabinet to give the ball some English, as Peggy Hill puts it.
But yeah.
That's actually my next game. When I'm done with video pinball. Only things that start with video. From now on, that's what I'm working on.
I really want a video pinball badly. I do.
Mine used to be Steve's from Grinkers in his warehouse. I'm pretty excited about.
That is awesome, because that was on the floor.
Well, no, he had some in a warehouse.
Oh.
He had his cast-offs that he
I
was able
see.
to throw back to the coin-op warehouse.
Okay.
Yes. Good times.
Well, Steve
Let's
from...
jump straight to it. What's in the juke?
What's in the juke?
What's in the juke?
Hey, everybody.
Hey.
The shortened version of the instructions. If you can guess that movie title, it's worth...
half point.
If you guess the actor...
half point.
If you guess both...
full point.
Let's...
Begin.
Oh my gosh.
You don't know it.
Yeah, if you...
All right.
Okay, here comes your first track. Try to guess what it is. If you get a character or an actor plus the movie, you get a full point. If you get any one of those, you get a half point. Here you go.
It's my fault being the biggest and the strongest. I don't even exercise.
I gotta say, I love that guy. I wish he was still around somehow.
It's my fault being the biggest and the strongest. I don't even exercise.
Who do we got in the chat? Who's got that?
We've got a lot of people. It looks like Drosten said Hulk. No.
Grinwing.
Grinwing got it. Andre the Giant.
All right. Don't say that, Mozzini. All right, here we go. Next track. Oh, wait,
Princess Bride, Andrew.
All right,
Andrew
cool.
B.
All right, here comes your next track.
Farm boy, polish my horse's saddle. I want to see my face shining in it by morning.
By the way, in the background, if you could tell me who is playing the guitar, you get a full point.
What?
Farm boy, polish my horse's saddle. I want to see my face shining in it by morning.
See if anybody gets it. So, farm boy, this is the quote.
Give the Princess Bride to Joe Drosten since he did it after it started playing.
Okay, great. And then, who is the actress?
Grinwing, Robin Wright.
Robin Wright. Okay, and nobody got the guitar player?
Did not.
It's Mark Knopfler from Dire Straits. He did the entire soundtrack.
God.
All right, okay, here comes your next track.
Rick, where'd you get a hand grenade? I don't know.
Let me play that again.
Rick, where'd you get a hand grenade? I don't know.
I killed a man with a trident.
Yeah, not an 80s movie, but...
It is so good. It is so good. It's set in the 70s, man.
70s, right.
Yeah. That's a hilarious... Actually, I think it's set in the now, but he's in the 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty funny.
They should just keep making sequels to that. I don't know why they don't.
I don't know. The last one did not do well. So did anybody get it?
Both versions of it are great, though.
Yeah. I haven't seen the second one. And
yeah,
by the way...
made a cuts version of it, an outtakes version.
There's a restaurant called Travail here that
Yes.
makes a drink called the Ron Burgundy.
Oh, nice.
And it's a bourbon drink. I don't know what else they put in it, but they actually blow cigar smoke into the glass. It's really... I'm not kidding you. It's phenomenal. Okay.
So it looks like Aaron, Arcadeology. Hello, Aaron.
Aaron.
Got a half point, and Mr. Peabody jumps in with a half point as well with Will Ferrell from Anchorman.
Aaron from RcadeRadio, I need a mailing label to mail Turbo Sub off. So, okay, here comes your next track.
Now, before we do this, let's go over the ground rules. Rule number 1. No touching of the hair or face.
Of course.
And that's it! Now let's do this!
That's it. That's the one rule. I'm only playing that once. That's a phenomenal clip. These clips are great.
Thank you, sir.
I love them. They make me happy inside.
I'm going to say Andrew B. got Will Ferrell and Arcadeology again with Anchorman. Boom.
Boom. Yeah.
Connect with my ex-girlfriend.
Okay, here comes your next track.
Hey, your worship, I'm only trying to help.
Oh, I think this might be my favorite scene in the whole movie.
Hey, your worship, I'm only trying to help.
And he's hitting obvious like switches and
yeah. And you know what I like is she says, I happen to like nice men, and his response is, I'm nice men. I think that I use that all the time. All the time. It works. It works brilliantly. Which is why I have been married twice. And, you know. Never.
So it looks like the Wooden Game got Empire Strikes Back, and Grinwing, he said Ford, that counts, Harrison Ford.
Excellent. Okay, here's your next track.
That's it. Goodbye. I'm not going to waste my time arguing with a man who's lining up to be a hot lunch.
Oh my God. But I have a confession. I didn't see this movie till my mid-30s.
Oh my God.
That's it. Goodbye. I'm not going to waste my time arguing with a man who's lining up to be a hot lunch.
Actually an annual viewing for me now. I cannot not watch it once a year.
I would love to be there.
It's so fun.
I'm going to see if somebody gets this, but there's some actual real science news about this kind of stuff that's crazy.
Is it on Shark Week?
No, it's not. Whiskey Flipper.
That's it. Goodbye. I'm not going to waste my time arguing with a man who's lining up to be a hot lunch.
Other Richard Dreyfuss movies that I love? What about Bob?
Jaws. So they have these drones out in California that are over
Is this
the
story
beaches.
long? Because we have 3 minutes to get through the rest of the tracks.
And what they're finding is there's great whites swimming around all the time.
Oh, man.
That's a great...
surface?
I need a clip that says, great story, bro.
Hey, I have your car towed all the way to your house, and all you got for me is light beer? Hey, I have your car towed all the way to your house, and all you got for me is light beer?
That is such a good clip. Hey, I have to say that, you know, this film deserves a slot on the show every week.
I know. I try to work it in. There's many clips.
Many. Swing batter.
Who knew that would be as famous as it is? Hey, Ed.
Hello.
Oh my gosh, we have a stowaway. Ed, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Say, we're getting a little feedback from you. If your speakers could be turned down just a little bit, it'd be great. Otherwise, if you can't, that's great too. Just leave it the way it is. We'll deal with it.
Does this sound better?
Perfect. Also, we're just finishing up a game with the chatters, so we hope you'll listen through and don't hang up on us because we have a grand intro for you. So,
okay.
But yeah, we're just finishing up sort of a Name That Tune, although it's really Name That Quote from a movie. So we've just had Jaws, and the last one was a quote from Back to the Future. So here comes the final few cues. Here we go.
Here lies the body of Mary Lee, died at the age of 103. For 15 years she kept her virginity. Not a bad record for this vicinity.
Oh, that's a good one too. You know, I really like his speech. We should just play that on the show sometime. The whole thing. It's from the same movie as the last quote from 2 times ago. So
right.
So if somebody gets that, it has something to do with Shark Week.
Right.
Yeah. All right.
Well, it looks like Joe Drosen got it with Jaws.
All right. Good.
Jaws.
All right. And we're gonna let this next clip come in while the other chatters guess that last bit, because I'm sure they're gonna get it right. And here we go. This is your next clip.
That's no moon.
That's not enough. It should say it's a space station. Oh my gosh. You know what? Ed gets a point.
Well done, sir. Ed Logg on the board with a half point.
All right. Ed's got a half point for Star Wars. Do you know who said it, Ed?
Is that Luke Skywalker?
Let me play it again.
That's no moon.
No. That's the old man Obi-Wan Kenobi.
There you
Correct.
go. Yes.
All right.
Oh my gosh, a full point for Ed Logg. All right, okay, so here we go. And here comes your last couple of clips.
Why, you stuck-up, half-witted, scruffy-looking nerf herder.
I love her so much.
Yeah, Carrie Fisher said that.
Oh, yes. Another half point.
Logg pulls into the lead.
With the full... He's got a point and a half. And that was from Empire Strikes Back. Did anybody get that?
Let's say...
Yes.
Somebody said Rise of Skywalker. I'm going to say Wooden Gamer got it.
Okay. Here comes your last clip. This is the last clip before we get to the interview, and here we go.
Sorry about your barn. Sorry about your barn.
That's it.
That's kind of hard. Could it be Crispin? He sounds like Crispin Glover.
Sorry about your barn.
But it's not.
Definitely 1985.
1985. Yeah, all right. So who got that?
Wooden Game got Back to the Future, and let's see who got Michael J. Fox. Let's go Joe Drosen.
All right.
Well, guess what? With that, Joe Drosen won the game with 2 points.
Oh, excellent.
Wooden Gamer, Whiskey Flipper, Ed, and Grinwing tied for second.
Fantastic.
Everybody else third place.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, everyone else. It's too bad. I like that sound. It's a very satisfying
sound.
It is a happy negative sound. So we have this portion of the show we like to call welcome Ed Logg to the show. Ed, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show, an honor to have you on the show. We have all kinds of questions for you. How was your evening so far?
Usual, I'm retired, so little bridge or something during the day.
Okay, so I have a question about that. Actually, when you were working at Atari, did you ever expect that you'd be retired and playing bridge?
Well, I was playing bridge at the time.
Oh, okay.
I eventually would retire. Yeah, I took up bridge in college when I walked into a dorm and they were playing this crazy card game. I'd never heard of it before. And I said, "What is this?" "Oh, here, sit down." So I sat down and explained a few rules. And first hand, they said, "Why didn't you finesse?" And I said, "What's a finesse?"
Well, now, so here's the thing. If bridge is as fun as Asteroids and Video Pinball and Super Breakout and Millipede and Centipede, then I'm going to have to take up bridge.
Okay.
But he didn't even argue. He just like, okay, yep, right. That's your next step.
Your opinion. I can't argue with that.
Maybe we can do some online bridge at some point. We'll see if Ed will join us for that.
Who's that? Is that a
Bichon?
Bichon?
Oh, cute.
It's a Bichon?
No, it's a Multi-Poo.
It's a Maltese something.
Maltese poodle.
Poodle.
Yeah.
Multi-poop. That means she doesn't shed, or he?
She doesn't shed. You have to basically give her a haircut every 5-6 weeks.
Oh, that's interesting. I love dogs that don't shed, and I have a 75-pound lab.
Oh, disappointing.
You get 7 pounds of fur every week too, don't you?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I didn't know a dog could shed that much, actually. So, Ed, why don't we talk about what is your earliest memory in which you knew I'm going to be an engineer?
I don't remember ever being an engineer.
Oh boy, I asked the question.
When I went to Berkeley, I majored in math, statistics, and physics my first year.
Oh, geez.
After 1 year of physics, I dropped that. Oh. And of course, this was the first year that Berkeley had a computer science department. And they still taught computer science with the math and the electrical engineering group. So, I took some courses in EE and some courses in math to actually start off computer programming, but I realized early on that I knew more than some of the professors did, especially in the assembly language programming class, the first one I took. Also, the first computer class I took, I got to the final, took the final, and I realized afterwards it was supposed to be open book. And I didn't bring anything.
Did you pass?
I didn't really answer your question, but
so far it's.
I'm never really an engineer. I'm always a programmer.
Well, and we call those software engineers today.
Software engineers. They've joined. Yeah, they somehow came up with that title these days.
Yeah.
Well, in those days it wasn't around.
So I like that. You're a programmer, and that's what I would have called you, 15, 20 years ago. But now I called you Ed Logg. Mark, did you have a question?
My last official title was?
What was it?
Super duper game guy.
Oh, that's not bad.
I like it.
I have business cards to prove it.
Oh, I need one of those because I pass out other people's business cards at events.
Interesting. I was the webmaster. I actually ran compact.com for 4 years, and my boss, who did not know anything about technology, was like, "You are a super genius," and so we always laughed because we were like, we're not really super geniuses. We're doing like search and replaces in our positions. It was like, but yeah,
but
that's
it's
hilarious.
stuck.
So
it stuck.
It did. So Ed, what specifically drove you to video games?
Well, let's put it this way. When I was at Control Data, which I was there for 5+ years before I joined Atari, I was the sort of master keeper of all the, what do you call, in those days, video pictures, which were basically overstrike printouts, if you've ever seen those. Yeah. I was the master of all sayings, like Murphy's Law and stuff like that. And so I conglomerated a lot of this stuff, and there were several books published from my list too, sayings like that. When they had Family Day, I was down there basically entertaining people, printing out Snoopy calendars, that stuff. I'd also taken Adventure, if you remember the original Text Venture game and the original Star Trek game.
Yeah.
One was written in CDC Fortran, the other one was written in IBM Fortran. Well, I got them to cross-compile on both compilers. So my wife worked at a Stanford Linear Accelerator at the time, so she had both of them running her, and I had both of them running at CDC. So I was always doing something. For example, I had a 3D tic-tac-toe program for a while that was actually ludicrous. I thought I had an algorithm that I could prove that it was a win for the first player, but MIT beat me to it before I could prove it. But the program would play it, and I'd start, and it said, "Oh, you lose in 24 moves." And it's like, oh shit. I can't think that far ahead. So I was always doing something, puzzles, or I took my checker program, put it on the Control Data console. If you've ever seen the green phosphor round consoles, and so I'd hook up two Control Data machines, playing checkers on 2 different consoles.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, Control Data. Oh no. I might be thinking of something else. They had a huge office in Minnesota. I don't know if they were.
Seymour Cray was Chippewa Falls, and so he had his main office up there.
Right.
So Control Data was their main offices up near Chippewa.
And Cray actually was founded out of Minnesota.
Very likely. I don't know his whole history.
Yeah,
if you say so.
Founded Control Data.
I do say so because I'm from Minnesota.
Oh, is that right? Is that one of the things you brag about when people come to the state?
Not lately. I mean, it's not really cool to be from Minnesota right now.
Oh well.
Yeah. Anyway, Brian, didn't you have a question coming up?
I did. So what? So what was the impetus of the drive to jump from Control Data over to Atari?
Well, there's actually 2. First of all, I think around 1977, I built my own home computer after attending the Homebrew Computer Club. I ordered a video card, built a wire wrap my own motherboard, and built my own box, power supply. I don't know where, I probably got from Haltech or someplace, some surplus place, and some monitor from some surplus place.
Was it a CPM board, perchance?
No, it was, as I said, it was a board with a video thing, and I had my own tape recorder, which I used for input-output. And so I wrote my own submarine, depth charge style game at that point. And the year before, in Christmas party, I attended, and there was a prototype VCS that somebody brought to the party. So I played Combat and other games on the prototype VCS before that. So I was already familiar with that. And then, I was getting sort of tired of control data. And one of my coworkers had already gone to work at Atari. He said, come on over.
Which coworker? Which coworker was that? Could you tell us which coworker it was?
I don't remember his name.
Oh, well, that helps.
But I was interviewed by Mike Alba when I got over there.
Okay, how did the interview go?
It was interesting because I told him I built my own computer. He said, well, how'd you sync with video? I said, well, I didn't. He said, you have tearing? I said, yeah, I have tearing. He says, you ever consider getting the vertical sync as an input? And I said, no, that's a good idea. I should have done that. So, that's how the interview went.
So I love the Homebrew Computer Club story because there's so many people that were involved with it. About the time that you were in it, can you tell us other big names beside yourself that were in that club?
Well, I didn't know the big names at the time. But
they became prominent later.
Well, Steve Jobs, Wozniak and others.
Right.
And there were probably some guys from Xerox PARC. And by the way, I interviewed at Xerox PARC when I got out of Stanford University with my master's. And I was just blown away by what they had up there.
And yeah, that's a whole different story.
Well, yeah, it was, what basically printed what you ever could, you could see, you could word processing, all that stuff they showed me.
And they had basically a Windows system before.
No, it's a Macintosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bullet from
right.
Bullet from Xerox PARC.
Yeah, I mean, basically, Jobs walked in there and said, "Hey, that's interesting," and he left, and he's like, "Let's make this." Yeah, I love that. There's such a deep entwined history between classic computing and the VCS and all that technology at the time. And I have to say that I feel very privileged to be a part of that generation that grew up with everything. I mean, everything you guys invented, everything that you discovered along the way, we've had a chance to experience, and I think it's awesome.
Well, I was very lucky to start out in an industry that was really new, so anything I could do was new. Nowadays, if you do a game, it's always it's sort of a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and some of that. And so it's a derivative of something. But in those days, I could do a game, and it was unique.
Yeah, and so you're sort of at the beginning, right? Not long after Pong, you're at Atari. You're programming with the likes of Howard Dellman and Ed Rotberg and the like. And so what was your feeling at the time about this budding industry?
Well, it was all new to me, but they were willing to pay me to program games, so I was having a field day.
Yeah. So I know. I mean, so first of all, let's round robin. Mark, Brian, myself. How many Ed Logg games do you have in your collection?
Well, I had 3, 7, 8. I had 9 games at home for a while.
Oh, you had 9 games.
I had 9 games in my house, or in my garage in the house.
So, Mark.
And the story behind a lot of that is, first of all, one of them was my wife's. So she owned an Asteroids before I met her.
Oh, there you go.
It's like a home run.
I have some more stories along that.
Wow.
To answer your question, in the early days, Atari allowed us to buy a prototype when they were done with it, because they couldn't sell it. They didn't have artwork, and everything was really, pretty, wire wrap boards and the like. And so for $50 to the local donut fund, we could take a game home. So I took up 7 games, and they were going to junk some Tempest Cabarets, and we heard about it and said, hey, we'll buy them. So for $150, I bought a Cabaret Tempest.
Oh my God.
So I live in a retirement community now, so I don't have any of my games. I sold a few, and I gave most of them to my daughter, who lives up in Roseville.
Do you want any?
No. I have no room for them.
Okay, that's fair enough. Okay, so Mark, how many Ed Logg games do you own?
Okay, let's see. Super Breakout, Video Pinball, Asteroid, Centipede, Millipede, Gauntlet, and Zybots.
Oh my
Just
God.
off the top of my head.
Are you kidding me?
No.
Mark, how many do you own?
Half of them are in my garage right now. So.
That's awesome. Mark, the other Mark, Brian, how many do you own?
Let's see. Asteroids, 2 Centipedes, 2 Gauntlet. Well, Gauntlet 1, Gauntlet 2, and a Xybots. And one of the games I regret the most not keeping, in Hawaii, I had no room for it when I was over there, is Space Lords. I had a gorgeous Space Lords, and I had no room. I was living in a small place, and I can't tell you how many times I have gone back and thought I should have done something to keep that, but
who needs a bathroom?
Now, okay, we're gonna get to Space Lords again back in the end of towards the end. Yep. But I want to say I have a Centipede, Millipede, and Asteroids, and I have a Super Breakout, but it doesn't really count because it's in a multi. So anyway, I have a dedicated Centipede, Multipede. I have a Multipede.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, we all 3 collect these games, and the guys in the chat. There's.
After I lose and die, I go, thanks a lot, Ed Logg.
I usually get the I used all my milk money to play your games.
Well, I grew up. The first 2 games I played there's a Gauntlet upstairs at the ski lodge that we would go skiing at, and my parents were so happy that they bought lift tickets, and my buddy and I would go up and play Gauntlet all day.
That's hilarious.
And I actually, the first fight I got into as a kid was my friend had put his quarters on the Gauntlet to play, and another kid knocked him over, and it became this you were 8 years old, 9 years old, something like that, and it became this fight. I was about 10, 11, but yeah, I had a huge memory. It was one of the games I had to have when I started collecting games. One of my favorites.
I have a side question on that. So there were some ports of that for the NES. I don't believe you had anything to do with them, though, right, Ed?
No, one of the guys in the house did a Gauntlet conversion for an NES.
But you did do an NES game at one point.
I did several, actually.
Tell us about those.
And then we found out that Atari may not own the rights to Centipede. So we had to go back and sue the other Atari Corp as opposed to Atari Games Corp.
Okay.
And the judge finally threw her hands up and said, well, I'll just give everything prior to the merger, the split, to one company, everything afterwards to the other company. So I couldn't do Centipede.
Oh.
But I had also seen Tetris and had done Tetris. And I had taken Tetris to a January CES and again to the June CES before Nintendo bought the rights for, some consoles or whatever else.
Sure. So did you, that's interesting. So one of my questions was going to be, how many years did you work for Atari? But that's a complicated question.
Well, I went from 78 to 94, and then for a year and a half I was at EA. We just wanted to get into consoles, and after a year and a half, they wanted me to do arcade games, and after a year and a half of trying, they said, no, we're going to give it up. And I looked around, I didn't see anything I wanted to work on, and at that point, my boss called me up and said, hey, would you like to port one of our games over to N64? And I said, sure. So I was a contract employee for Atari until they basically got rid of Midway Games.
So those ports were Rush 2049?
Well, it was it was Wayne Gretzky Hockey.
Okay.
It was the initial release for N64.
Okay.
And then there's San Francisco Rush, Rush 2, Rush 2049, and then I did Dr. Muto for 3 different platforms.
Wow.
So awesome.
Oh my God, my mind is swimming right now. This is like.
So back, I mean, we've talked with a few designers who have said there was a game or an idea or concept they had back in the day. Were there any ideas or games that you had that never got through corporate that you're like, this would have been a fun game to do?
Well, yeah, I'm going to answer that in several degrees. It was a game I wanted to do, but it required more than one player playing on the cabinet, and marketing said, no, you can't have more than, one player, 2 players on a cabinet. And I didn't want a plexiglass on it because that would cause reflections. They said, no, you can't do that. You got to have a plexiglass. So I couldn't do that. And they wanted me to do a System 1 board, but if you've ever seen a System 1 board, it's like takes up, so many square yards. Yeah.
Yeah.
In a cabinet, and I wanted to do something different. So I had an engineer design a board that what we call Mach 24, because Mach 16 was 16 motion objects on the scan line. Well, I wanted Mach 24 because he found a way to basically reuse objects if he's not active. And not only that, every few scan lines they could change sets of motion objects for him to look at. So I had him design this hardware, and I was working on Laserdisc Roadrunner at the time, and it was field testing good enough that they couldn't kill, not good enough that they could actually try to sell it as a Laserdisc.
Wow.
So they wanted me to port it to System 1, and I said, no, I got a better idea. So I went and did Gauntlet. But it was really pulling teeth right and left to get that game.
With no plexi and 4 players.
4 players.
Who
plexiglass, and I did 4-layer PC board to get it down to a small enough size.
Just out of curiosity, who created that cabinet for Gauntlet?
It was one of the industrial designs. I don't know if it was Mike Chang or who it was. I can't say who it did.
Okay. So you probably worked on a bunch of games that didn't make it to market. Can you tell us anything about Maze Invaders? What happened to that game?
It field tested, and it was sort of so-so.
Yep.
And so one of the operators that was field testing loved it so much that he bought it from Atari. And the other one I had in my garage for a while, and my son wanted it, but he had no place for it. So
sure.
I eventually sold it.
And I'm
sure two prototypes of Maze Invaders out.
So, and I'm sure with a lot of the games you made, marketing sort of took over and did whatever they did. But did you ever end up working with people like Bob Clemente or George Opperman or Hiro Kimura, Doug Watson? Any of those names ring a bell?
Yes. George was our artist for like these Asteroids control panel and stuff like that until, up until before Centipede, let's put it that way. I really didn't have a track record, other than Super Breakout Video Pinball. So I didn't have a lot of authority to, reject or approve or any of that stuff.
Sure.
But after, Asteroids, I became a project leader, so I could approve and disapprove, artwork and go, for example, Pete Takichi would give me the entire production plans, and I have to go over them and approve them. And stuff like that. So, and Bob was in Pete's group, so I worked with Bob somewhat, but Jerry Lychek was also in his group. We did the controls, the trackball for Centipede, and and trackball for football and stuff like that. Wow. And he redesigned for the switches for Asteroids and so on and so on.
So, did you have a pretty good relationship with the designers of the cabinets in general then? Because it sounds like you did.
Yeah. They did the design of the cabinet. And it was just up to me to basically approve it.
So that's it.
I don't remember any problems.
That actually seems really unique to me. Like today, that wouldn't happen. Like you would write a game, and somebody would be like, this department's doing the cabinet, and you don't have any input. So I think it's really cool that you got to say yay or nay on that stuff.
So. Hey, Somebody in the chat is asking Ed, and I think this is a pretty good one. How weird is it doing interviews like this with fans hanging on your every word? When originally this was just your job, like how did that transition go exactly?
That's actually a good question. I like that.
Well, see, I retired. I have nothing else better to do.
I was hoping. That's awesome.
I mean, if you got me when I was working, no, I don't have time, buddy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, who are you? Just move along. So here's another question from the chat. What game or games did you have the shortest time working on and wish you had more time to work on?
Well, Dr. Muto would have been one, but, at that point we had like 40 people working on it. So, it was a multi-platform. And you get to projects that large, you can have a superstar and his contributions get diluted so badly.
Sure.
Often you don't see it. It was different, when you're doing Asteroids and you are the person, you're doing the artwork, you're doing the programming, everything else.
Yeah. And so did you have any input on Asteroids Deluxe, or was that?
I did not. That was done by Dave Shepard.
Okay. So you weren't involved at all? He basically took your cues and then enhanced it?
Yes. He took I think he took my source code. Dave Shepard, you have to understand, was sort of like our IT guy.
Yeah.
He was sort of the do-all, know-all of, IT. And so, he probably had all the source code for every game at a while. And he wrote the, cross-compiler and everything else, too.
So the cool thing is, he may have taken your code and made a new game, but you took your code and made a new game. And we have to mention Turtleoids.
It's not a new game. I just replaced one piece of artwork, and it's a list of points that they used for the spaceship that changed it to a turtle.
So, what was the impetus for that? Why did you make it a Turtleoid? So who was the target?
Frank Ballou was the target, because when we went to brainstormings once a year, every year, I think Mike Alba or somebody would propose the turtle racing game, which is a game where you have a turtle and you're trying to get him to move, and if you speak, he moves, and you have to increase your volume to get him to continue. But if you increase your volume too loud, he comes back in his shell and takes a while before he comes back out.
Oh my gosh!
And so finally get Frank Ballou. He was up in Napa, Sonoma, in one of the Pink Palaces, I think. He finally got up and said, "No more turtle games. I don't want to hear turtle anything." So we got wind-up turtles and put it in a drink and took the drinks to
Nice.
Wind-up turtles. We did everything we could think of with turtles. And so finally said, "Hey, we had that gold asteroids. Let's put a turtle in it." So we had the gold asteroids. So I substituted the EEPROMs for turtleroids.
Now, somebody's already asked this, but do the ROMs exist for Turtleoids, and where can we get them?
I do not know of any.
Yeah.
I have the original artwork for Turtleroids, so if I had the source code, I could substitute those points for the saucer and it would work.
Well, we should send you the source code or something.
No, what I should do is send you the picture of Turtleroids. It's got coordinates.
And let somebody do it.
Yeah, that's something that I'm sure we could find somebody who would help out with that.
Right.
That'd be great.
Yeah. In fact, I know a certain Jason Kopp would probably dig into that in about 2 seconds.
Well, and would it be great?
Tomorrow morning.
You could, Brian, you could do the marquees, and we could do a special cabinet. It'd be great. We could do like a turtle-shaped cabinet.
Let's just get an Asteroids cabinet, painted green.
So you have to send a picture of that to Frank Ballou.
It'd be hilarious. Put a shell on the back of that thing.
There was a question in the chat also about, did you ever were there any other games that you went to or that you found inspiring when you were designing new games? Are there any games that stood out to you?
Well, I mean, there's the games, Arkanoid, when I first saw that, it's like, oh, God, why didn't I think of that? Because that was Super Breakout. It was like,
sure.
And, we'd gone to AMOAs and other game shows, and we actually got some competitors' games in the house to play them. And some of them I really enjoyed, and I thought they were pretty good. Unfortunately, we didn't get them. or some of them that we didn't get. You know,
Was there? Do you have a game?
Galaxian was one I thought was pretty good.
Okay.
And, you know, we didn't. I don't think we got the license to that from Namco.
Yeah.
What was it, Brian? You're saying?
I was gonna say, did you have a favorite game back in the day?
Not really a favorite. You know, I thought the game I enjoyed playing the most was probably Robotron.
Oh yeah. You know, it's funny. I've heard other people from Atari say they love Defender and they love Robotron.
Robotron, right.
I was not into Defender at all, but I really love Robotron.
Yeah.
Wow. Robotron's such a frenetic game.
Yeah. If I wanted to get woken up and just play a game of Robotron, I'm wired for hours.
I have a Robotron over here. Mark keeps trying to steal it from me. I don't know.
I don't have one yet. There's a computer space like right here. Here, see, there's a computer space, and I don't own a Robotron. How is this possible?
Do you guys have any idea how we programmed those early games?
No, we don't. Tell us.
You know, there was a black box which was plugged into the processor.
Okay.
Well, it was plugged into the board to plug into the EEPROM sockets to simulate the memory. And we clipped an HP analyzer if there was one or two floating around engineering on top of the processor if you wanted to debug something special. But yeah, I don't know what we could use to. I don't think there was any means to trace anything, or we could put breakpoints in, but I don't remember how we could get control back. I certainly couldn't look at the registers or anything like that. But I actually never wrote or typed in any of my programs into a computer. I wrote them on a piece of paper, handed the paper off to some computer operators. We had one PDP system in there, or two of them, and the gals would type them in, give us back a paper tape and a new printout. And so we'd load the paper tape through the black box. That would load up the memory, and you basically start it off. And if you find a bug, well, you jumped off to an unused memory, put in the appropriate instructions if you knew the 6502 opcode, which we all did, and then jump back.
Oh my!
That's crazy.
So my father did some work very early on with MRI research and stuff, and he had his programs for this were written on paper tapes. I was at his house like 6 months ago, and he has this box of paper tapes there. I'm going, what are you going to do with this? He's like, well, I can't throw it away. There's
Really
nothing in the world that can read this anymore. It's like completely useless. So I went back down in the basement. I didn't know what to do. I give up.
Maybe make some art or something out of that.
It's kind of he also has some reel-to-reel tapes that are kind of interesting. There's another question from Andrew B that asked, did you have was it a conscious choice to buck the trend and use only 2 letters in the high score table for like Battlezone Millipede when a lot of other people were using 3?
I would think I was the first game at Atari with Asteroids to create a high score table.
Oh.
And I think I got that from the Exidy Game Venture or something like that was out before. So I did not invent it, but I like the idea. Of course, we had no memory backup. So when you powered back off, the table would be empty. Right. I don't think I seeded it like I did back in Centipede days, where we had we could fill the rest of the table with people who worked on the game. And I don't think I seeded it in Asteroids. I'd have to go back and.
I think it's blank. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, I think it's all blank.
But that's kind of cool when it's a fresh.
Trying to do stuff in 2K of EEPROM, so 2K bytes of EEPROM, so that's not a lot.
No.
Are there any games that you made that you kind of wish, or maybe that you pitched a sequel to, but that never happened?
Generally I don't do sequels, although I did one for Gauntlet, and Xybots was actually a game called Catacombs, which was with Gauntlet characters. So that was going to be an entirely different sequel until marketing came back and said, no more Gauntlet. We don't want no Gauntlet. That
would have been amazing.
I regret to this day not doing Gauntlet characters. But I did do 2 major Havoc style characters.
So the thing about Xybots, though, isn't that really the first 3D first-person shooter multi-game?
No, actually, the way it started was Doug Snyder was in my office one day, and he was explaining to me how first-person shooter was working, because in, I think it was a PC magazine or something, some other game had done it, where you did vertical line scans for drawing screen. Of course, Atari had no bitmapped hardware, so we couldn't use that algorithm.
Okay.
But I started thinking for a minute, I said, I bet you I could do it in 8x8 stamps, which is what NES uses and what we had for hardware at the time.
Sure.
So I sat down a piece of paper and did 30, 45, and 60-degree angles, and I said, yeah, I could do this particular game in stamp hardware, first-degree shooter, but I have to have a radar, overhead map to show you where you're at and everything else, otherwise people will get lost. But that game was simply a proof of concept to determine whether I could do a first-person shooter using our style hardware.
I got to tell you that for a lot of my friends that are into arcade games, and even those that are just into computer games, Xybots was a pretty groundbreaking game at the time in arcades.
It was really different.
Yep.
And so different that people couldn't get the idea of turning the knob to turn your point of view.
And the sound, it was amazing in that game.
Yeah.
I mean,
a lot of my games are just, come off of, can I do this? Let me see if I can do that. I mean, Space Lords was that. It's just if I could do a 3D shooter, in actually sort of 2D space, with growth hardware. And so game was just a proof of concept.
It's funny because one of the questions I had from a chatter was, tell us more about Space Lords and what motivated it. So that was it. It was a 3D.
I just wanted to prove that you could do 3D style stuff in a 2D, a real 2D world.
So how many of those games were produced for Space Lords?
I'd have to go look it up.
Yeah,
I got to go find
two
one.
cabinets together and have basically 4 players running around the universe too.
Yeah, you're completely like ruining my thoughts of losing that cabinet now. I've got to go find 2 Space Lord cabinets.
That was the first time Atari had ever linked 2 cabinets together.
The graph, I mean, everything about that game, it was really sad. I mean, everything about that game, the cabinet was beautiful, the top was beautiful, the graphics are beautiful, the controls, the layout. I mean, it was just a neat, fun layout for a game.
What year did that come out?
Lords is 92, I think.
So it's late.
Yeah.
It's late.
Yeah, it's late.
Yeah.
But I have so many stories with all my games. I'll give you one. Steel Talons. It was hard driving hardware. And
I wondered about that. I wanted
to do Ace of Aces, and marketing came and said, no, biplanes are too slow. We want jets. I said, I'm not doing jets at 1,000 miles an hour. You fly by, and you see this little dot out there. It's ridiculous. But I can do a helicopter because they're relatively slow and they're well armored, and it still gives you a sense of power.
Right.
So that was the impetus for that. But the thing about hard driving hardware, you only do like 250 polys. That's about really all the polygons you could draw. And so I was trying to figure out how to do this. Well, I need to fog things in the distance because my worlds are bigger than that. So one day I had fogging. So whenever the hard driving group said, hey, I want to add fogging. Can you change your microcode, Jed? No, you can't do that. No, it won't work. No, it won't work. So I figured a way to do it in pallets by swapping pallets.
Oh.
Because I had tons of pallets. And so, once I started the game, I walked in one weekend, and here's Jed Margolin with his girlfriend showing off the fogging in Steel Talons.
Nice.
So Steel Talons, did you work on that with Ed Rotberg?
Yes, I did.
And you were on another podcast with Ed Rotberg on April 6th. If people want to go check that out, it's over at Arcade
Hangout.
Yes.
But what was it like connecting with all those guys that night?
I sort of see him once or twice a year anyway. Olin Rubin quite often, but Ed Rotberg,
I get the impression
his wife used to be my financial planner.
Oh.
And Ed Rotberg was my wife's boyfriend before
Oh, man.
Over.
Right. Before Ed lost.
Yeah, well,
Before
actually,
Ed
Robert
lost.
introduced me to my wife.
That's awesome.
We were at an Atari Christmas party. I went stag, and he introduced me to his girlfriend at the time. Here, I want you to introduce to the best.
Oh.
Yes.
And you're like, I'm taking note.
I think they call that Eskimo Brothers.
But no.
Yes, my wife is from the Midwest. I assure you, it's a thing. So,
somebody had asked another question about Steel Talons, and yeah, they said, "What is the truth behind Steel Talons? Was it a simulator for the military, or just one hell of a game?"
No, it was basically I paid somebody to give me their source code for a helicopter simulator. And I sort of spiffed it up, made it a little faster and a little more powerful. And so I boosted a little bit. Fudge factor, not real physics, but I added some fudge factors in there to increase the acceleration or whatever. So I bought the software, but the game idea, if you've ever seen the cabinets, 2 side-by-side sit-downs. And so it was just strictly a combat game, although it did have a what do you call it? I forget what did I call it? Where you tried to run through from getting point A to point B in a particular time, a race, you gotta call it. Mm-hmm. But there's so many interesting stories about that. For example, I added a thumper under your seat when you got shot.
That's cool.
When you got shot, I hit it's a pinball thumper. You ever seen a pinball thumper?
Yeah. Yep. Now, one other thing I love about I was going to say, one other thing I love about Atari games in particular is the uniqueness of the controls. So, I mean, every game at Atari, and you must have been thinking about this along the way, or maybe you weren't. Maybe we're just like, how can we control the game? But you had Atari Football, which you also worked on a little bit. Atari Football.
Mike Alba did all the programming in that. I just helped him get the 4 plays together for it.
Yeah,
and he gave me, I think, more credit than I deserved. But I told him how to play football. So
I got one right here. It's right here. So, but then there's Tempest with the spinner, and there's Star Wars with the yoke, and there's all these different controls. And then there's the trackball. The trackball was really kind of a thing at Atari. And I think I have 2 questions. It's 2 parts. First of all, you mentioned the brainstorming sessions. Can you give us a little bit of background on what that was like?
It was basically a 3-day party. Let's put it that way.
I love it. So tell us about the party.
Tell us. Day, we're supposed to bring the game ideas there.
Yeah.
So we get in front of a small group. We break it up into groups. We talk to our group and say, "This is my idea," and they say, "What about this? What about that?" And so at the end, you're supposed to, take all their input and create this concept, and later you're supposed to submit it to the whole group of everybody there. So we have artists, programmers, engineers. We have everybody there. We're proposing these ideas, and then somebody writes them up, and we have this booklet at the end of the time. Now, Centipede is the only game idea that I think I've ever taken from the brainstorming session. Everything else, in my mind, wasn't particularly good, or nothing really caught my eye.
So I've just put that up on the screen. I've put up a literal screenshot that you gave me, a picture that you took of the description of Bug Shooter. Yep. And it says, AKA Shoot the Centipede. This is a kind of video shooting arcade. XY monitor, upright, or cocktail cabinet would probably XY. I love that it's an XY. So, how are you going to do it in XY? Don't answer that. So, would you probably not be simultaneous 2-player? That's understood. The player would control a gun, which would move horizontally back and forth at the bottom of the screen. A long multiple segment object would appear at the top of the screen. This object would snake its way back and forth across the screen as it advances towards the player's gun. The player must shoot and destroy the object before it reaches its gun. And thereby so the difficulty in doing this is that each time the object is shot in one of its central segments, it splits off. So this is a legitimate brains. So you pulled this out of a book.
Yep.
And And so I asked, I know I asked you before the show, but you did not write this. Somebody else wrote this.
Dona Bailey was the programmer I assigned it to. I was supervisor at the time. And so, I was to, guide her through the process. So I did things like, get the centipede and the leg animations and show her how that would work. So a lot of the artwork is mine, although some of it is not. For example, there's a grasshopper, and I think it was done by Dave. What's his name? Cyberball. Dave Ralston.
Sure.
But so some of the artwork is done by, a real artist, not me. But,
I don't know about that.
And then we had things flack about the shooter. It's too close to the Atari logo, and it would, invalidate our, copyright for the logo and stuff like that.
Now, one thing I've always wondered about, sort of your signature in games, and I think this must have been true for most programmers at the time, but your initials are in the high score tables when you boot them up.
Yep.
And I see that Ed Logg EJD, James, maybe?
JD. What's the initials?
EJD. Is that you? Or did you just put in Ed? Because Ed is further down.
Yeah. DJ. It's not DJ.
EJD.
Well, there was Dave, who was the technician on it.
Dave FT. DFT.
I think it was ED and FXL or something.
And then
there's GEL, which is actually my son's initials.
Oh, okay.
I use EL for my, so it's sort of both probably in Centipede.
There is one that just says Ed 1310, and then and then there is DCB, which has to be Dona Bailey.
Yep.
So that's a fun. I don't know. It's a fun tidbit. I just love that you guys are like, I'm gonna leave my image on this game, and you know.
People have to understand, in those days, you were not allowed, or the company was not giving out people's names as to who did what.
Right.
Or so what games Ed Logg did, nobody knew. Or who worked on this game, you didn't know.
I don't think I actually knew.
Until after Magic and Activision, where the shit was hitting the fan as far as consumer goes.
Right.
I don't think I actually knew who you were until the 90s.
Yeah,
that's probably just as well.
And I think it was because of probably PlayStation 1 compilations that had Atari games on them, and there was some interviews on those discs. I can't remember if you were in them or not. But
it could be. I've been in some of them.
Yeah, but there was a lot of guys that did those, and Ed Rotberg's in them for sure. Owen is surprisingly active now. He's sort of an instigator.
You guys haven't seen my shirt, have you?
Oh,
what's going on there?
Oh, it's a Gauntlet. It's a remake of the original Gauntlet shirt.
I love it.
It is.
I think my other one died of old age.
It is funny that they said that there was enough Gauntlet, but like Gauntlet Arcade, the later Gauntlets that came out were huge successes.
Yeah, they were.
Years later. So they thought Gauntlet was done, and it was not done by any means.
Well,
they did many sequels on that.
And now there's an actual ending. You made it a sadistic game where nobody could actually beat it.
Well, there was no ending in it, and I had a real fight with marketing over that because every game has always had an ending before this. I said I can't do that. Somebody puts $5 in. What am I supposed to do with it?
Huh.
Now, I can't send him back to level 1. That seems like a cheat.
Yeah.
And I'm certainly not going to say, "Oh, game over. Thank you for your money." They destroy my cabinet.
Well, Gauntlet though was a groundbreaking game. I mean,
yes.
It was the first. As far as I remember, it was the first game that took more than a quarter.
Well, you could put as many quarters in as you wanted.
Right, but you could keep going. That was the point.
Yeah, it was also the first one that's had one slot per player, which I always thought was a real weakness. But I think after realizing for a while that the amount of money it was earning, there's no operator in the world that will allow a broken coin mech to pull that game up.
Nice.
Yeah. No.
Hey, Ed, have you ever designed a font that was used in any of these games?
Yes.
Tell me a little.
Lunar Lander, I did the font, which I also copied for Asteroids.
Interesting.
About the XY monitor and how to program it.
Because I feel like I've seen the font is in Star Wars. Seems familiar. I think they stole your font.
Well, they may have. I can't attest to that.
Now, it's interesting. So, the original concept in the brainstorming session was that Centipede would be a vector game. How would that even be accomplished?
Oh my gosh.
Well, I vetoed that right away. It was also, I think, they wanted to do a horizontal monitor, and I said, no, you can't. You have a vertical monitor. You need more shooting space.
Yeah.
And since the player wasn't moving, I said, no, you can't do that. The player's got to be able to move in the bottom few rows, some number of rows. He's got to be able to vertically, get above and below the spider, the centipede and the spider, or whatever else I threw at him.
So
I changed a lot of what you see out there.
Did you find yourself working in constraints most of the time and then adapting to those constraints, or did you sometimes just say, screw it, I want to do something new?
Well, the answer is yes and yes.
Okay.
The earlier games had real constraints. Like Video Pinball had like a very quirky motion object, which I used for the ball.
Yeah.
Everything else I used stamps for. Centipede, for example, had 16 motion objects. So it was probably one for the gun, one for the shot, 12 for the centipede, and a couple for the spider or whatever else coming in. So those are the 16 objects I had. So, if you were using a spider, I'm not going to drop a flea on you, because I didn't have a motion.
I have to say.
So that's some of the rules that you can figure out. You can't have a flea if you've got a spider and that kind of stuff.
I have to say, though, Video Pinball is one of the coolest games I've ever played. And I always, when I was a kid, I was like, pinball? You could go play pinball. Why would you play an arcade pinball? Because pinball is right over there. Why don't I just go play it? So, but I finally got a chance to play Ed Grinkers. There's a guy by the name of Steve Barbie. And I'm saying both your names, Steve, because I love you. And you had an awesome place, and it's gone now. But at his arcade Grinkers in Idaho, he had one of those. And I got to say, it is one of the coolest games ever conceived by Atari. It has all these, I don't know, there's a certain feel that you get from like Asteroids and Asteroids Deluxe and all these games where the images are sort of floating. But how did you marry up like physical with, digital back then? I mean, like, was it just, that must have been a challenge.
Well, first of all, I had the same impression you did, but about why would I play this? I could just go play a real pinball game.
Right.
But my boss, I was still young. This is my second game at Atari, and so they wanted me to do this game. And Dave Steuben said, go do it. So I went ahead and did it. And for those people who don't know, there is a half silvered mirror, monitor underneath, and a LED light board up above. And so you see the LEDs basically off the half silvered mirror, and you also see the monitor underneath. So there's always a registration problem trying to get the video to match the PC board. And all this video also increases and decreases in size. I see you have the LED board.
Yeah.
And so, there's always a problem with registration, which drives me nuts. The interesting thing about the game is it actually has a nudge feature too, so you can actually sort of nudge the control panel, and it would actually add a little impetus
that
if
is
it hit at the right time.
That is the coolest feature of that game, is that there's actually a physical element that it makes it feel like almost like a real pinball machine.
I don't know if I put a pinball tilt. I think I may have put a tilt meter in that control panel as well, so that if you tilted it, it would actually do like a pinball tilt and drain the ball, and that's it.
Yeah, that's.
So I don't know. I think I put it in, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I love it. That is a beautiful thing, and Atari did that a lot. They used a lot of optical effects, if you will, in their early games.
Well, you have to understand, they were black and white monitors when I started out. Everything. So if you wanted any color or anything else fancy, you had to do a half silver mirror to show it. For example, even Super Breakout, it's got a what do they call it? Not a plexiglass, but basically a vinyl over the top of the monitor, so you get colors depending on the rows. But if your monitor grows or shrinks, you get different colors for the wrong rows and stuff like that.
Right.
So I want to give you a couple of names, and I just want you to give me like an adjective for the name. Is that okay? We're just gonna call it a couple.
Is this going to get me in trouble?
Yeah, absolutely. But here, I'm gonna make it easy. I want to make it easy for you. I'm gonna start with Owen Rubin. Just give me an adjective. Any adjective.
He's Mr. Havoc.
There you go.
I mean that in many ways.
Yes.
For example, I mean, there are many cases where somebody said, "Hey, check out this game." So he'll play the game, and he got this 2-page list of bugs. And so he goes back to the guy, says, and the guy said, "What did you think of it?" He says, "Well, here's a list of bugs." He says, "No, we're going to put it in production tomorrow."
No.
Yes, and he's done this over and over again.
And to me, like, I see old pictures of Owen, and he's got straight hair, and he's got a mustache. It's like the porn stash, It's, So, okay. So let me give you another name, Ed Rotberg.
Oh, he's got a temper.
Oh, temper. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I played tennis with him, and Rotberg's got this. He's
a McEnroe.
Whack the ball as hard as you can, get it over there. And I'm sitting here lobbing these shots back, and he keeps hitting them into the net. And he got so pissed, and he'd throw his racket against the cyclone fence, and he just.
We had Rotberg on our show, third season maybe. It was me and Mark, and he was in a cast, and we had all kinds of technical problems, and he was not happy. I mean, like within.
I probably saw some of it then.
Like after about 16 minutes, he's like, "I'm gonna fucking quit this show.
We're leaving."
Yeah, and we're like, "Okay, I'm sorry, dude, I'm sorry." But yeah, no, he was. It turned out to be an ultimate gentleman. Okay, here comes another name, Nolan Bushnell. You can be honest. It's okay. We've had him on the show.
I wouldn't trust him for anything. Get the money up front.
You take your money up front.
Make him sign that contract.
Yeah. You get the money up front for doing anything.
I like him because he's an idea.
Lots of ideas. And,
yes. He's an idea man.
Trust him, as far as a businessman goes.
Howard Delman.
Nice guy, good engineer.
You must have dealt with him early on, I'm thinking.
Yeah, Asteroids.
Yeah. So did he help you with Asteroids?
Well, yeah, he's the electrical engineer, so he's the one that would have to modify a lunar lander board to, and I don't know what modifications we had. Probably, one was audio.
Okay.
So it was all RC constants for doing the audio.
Did you?
So I'd trigger an audio, and he'd run up this, particular sound for the.
Sure.
So he'd do this. Does this sound good for a saucer? Yeah, I like that. Okay, that's what we do for a saucer.
And by the way,
what do we do for this?
Howard Delman is famous for Superbug and Fire Truck. Those were his two main games. I just got a Fire Truck.
Engineer, I think, on probably Lunar Lander and certainly Asteroids.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Okay, and so I don't have any other names. I'm not gonna put you on the spot.
How about Rick Moncrief?
Ooh.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of Lunar Lander.
I love Lunar Lander.
Yeah, well, I had more dealings with Rick later on, after the hard driving and stuff.
Oh.
He ran his own little group over there and his own little empire.
That's awesome.
But he did hard driving, so it really worked out well. He had some good people over there.
It's interesting how he came from that, the gap between Lunar Lander and hard drive. It's just like a giant gulf.
Yeah, I know, because I don't know what he did in between.
Yeah, me neither. It's not online. I have to go check.
I think he did a lot of the stuff for the XY hardware too.
Oh, really?
But I wasn't there early on, so I couldn't tell you.
Okay, I have a question for you. You've worked with both vector and raster. What was your preference back then?
Well, I mean, originally when Lyle Raines proposed Asteroids to me, he wanted to do it in raster, and I said no, for two reasons. Number one, raster is 320 by 240, and if you ever looked at a raster screen up close, I mean, you try to draw a dot, and it's really blurry.
Yeah. And
I played the original Space War back up in 1971 at the Stanford AI lab on a PDP, PDP mod, and I could see the resolution, so I knew what it was like. And when I thought of Asteroids, I thought of Space War, and I knew since I'd done, the alphabet for the XY, I knew it was 1024 by 768, so it was 16 times the resolution. And when I turned the ship, I wanted to tell which way I was pointed, not some blur sort of
right
in that direction. So I told him right then and there in his office, no, I'm doing XY.
That's awesome.
I didn't know until later when I saw the shots going across the screen that the phosphor burn on the XY monitor is great. It leaves this trail. That was an extra plus I didn't count on.
I have to say that I'm a big fan of vector games. Because of their ability back then, because of their versatility over raster at the time. But now, I kind of wish there was raster out there still. There's a certain charm with those games, and it's kind of gone.
Yeah, it's only so much you can do in black and white at 320 by 240, or even in color in 320 by 240.
Sure.
Right.
Now, if I had a 4K screen, it would have been a different matter.
Oh, yeah.
But you also have to understand, too, Asteroids is, it's mostly black in space. And so that fits an XY monitor very well. You're not drawing a lot of stuff. I'm trying to do a Centipede on XY monitor. There's no way. I can't draw that stuff.
Yeah,
the hardware just won't handle it.
No.
So weren't there some phone games, like Verizon cell phone games that you worked on?
Yes, I did. I did 3.
Oh, well, let's hear about those.
Yeah, I see a video poker stack 'em pool.
Yes, and the stack 'em was basically a variation on a lot of games, but it was sort of Tetris-like, sort of a lot of games like Dr. Mean Bean Machine. It was sort of a combination of a lot of the games, and it played really well. I mean, a lot of people liked it. But the way to get on Verizon games is you had to have you had to be part of a big company, and we were a startup, so we had to go to an outside broker to do it. And Video Pinball I did as well, and Video Pinball got on, and about 2 weeks later it was pulled. And so I asked the broker, "Why did it get pulled?" And he said, "Well, it didn't have good sales." And I said, "This is for the sales." Oh, that's pretty good. So I have yet to hear why Verizon pulled it. Now, Pool was a game that was very interesting because you could play the game on multiple different size Verizon handsets, any resolution at all, and it would work. It would sync up, so you could play somebody else on another handset, totally different handset, and it would play accurately.
Oh, nice.
And Namco actually licensed that, and that was actually the cash cow for the company for many years until Namco basically said, "We're going to stop paying you. Sue us."
All right, I gotta stop for a second. So, first of all, you've got a lot of great ideas. You have to build games for all these different companies. But what games did you actually like that you made? Tell me the top 3 of your favorite games that you made.
There's so many good games that I liked. The Pool game I thought was a great game.
Really?
Yeah, I thought it was a great game.
I want to play that.
Wayne Gretzky 3D Hockey, I thought I did a fabulous job on that. If you take a look at the instant replay, you can see the puck bouncing off of skates.
Now I want to play that.
And things off of that. If you take a look at Rush 2049, the battle mode is probably, in my mind, the best battle mode driving game out there that's ever been done.
And that was
and,
on.
Asteroids and Centipede are on my list. Super Breakout was great at its time too.
That's not 3. You're way over 3.
But that's okay.
So that's awesome. So Rush 2049, that's the arcade game, or is that the port?
The Rush 2049 was a God. We took the port of the coin-up. We took the coin-up playfield. We added the combat mode and the acrobatic mode. So those are all new.
Those are cool. In N64, right?
That was N64.
Yeah. So you were to take some assets from the arcade game and bring them into the N64?
Yeah, we brought the art assets in.
Oh, nice.
I mean, that's pretty cool. I mean, that's like next level programming.
Yeah, we took the software for the driving model, I think, too. But I don't think we could do that. That was the problem with the original San Francisco Rush is I didn't have a math box to do for that, so I sort of simulated it.
Yep.
You know, actually, I don't know if you've seen this, kind of funny, but there was a vector version of the Centipede, really dumbed down with objects, that was done for Vectrex.
I had not seen that. Vectrex was amazing. If you actually open up the cabinet and see what's behind there, it looks like, pure magic.
Black magic. It just works. Trust me. Yeah, no, that's cool. I would love that. Is there other questions in the chat we missed?
There's a bunch of stuff that you guys haven't asked, and that is sort of behind the scenes story that, if you weren't there, would probably never know about them.
Okay.
We're ready.
To share.
We're ready.
How much time do you have?
We have all.
How much time do you have? We can stay here all night.
Yeah, we are just on the cut. Okay, first of all, it's only 7:00 over there, so you just do what you need to do.
Yes.
All right. Well, let's start off early. Let's take the first game, Super Breakout. I was doing Dirt Bike at the same time, and I told you how we do stuff. We write up the changes we want and submit it in an hour or two. You get it back. Well, you got some time to kill, so Owen Rubin suggested this game that Nolan had told him about doing an upgrade for Breakout. So I created 6 different versions of Breakout, and while that list was in there, I was writing up my Super Breakout. And so when Dirt Bike was come back, I'd submit these changes. And so it was ping pong. That was the first time anybody at Atari was doing 2 games at once on the same hardware, because I could do it on Dirt Bike hardware with, different controls. But so I'd basically pop the EEPROMs to the artwork, plug the EEPROMs in for the new game, and I'd load the new paper tape and pop debugging. So I was doing 2 games at once.
Jeez, paper tape. It's driving me nuts.
So I actually field tested both games, Dirt Bike and Super Breakout. Now, Super Breakout, there were 6 versions, but they didn't want to do all 6 because I had the columns like you see in Arkanoid and stuff. And so I just put 3 versions in one cabinet and field tested that. And so you had a 3-way switch. You could select which ones you wanted. Progressive was always my favorite anyway. And I was doing Dirt Bike. So Super Breakout blew away Dirt Bike. So they decided not to build that.
Oh, my God.
Let's go to the next one. Super Breakout's got an interesting story, too.
Okay.
Because at the end, I bought the cabinet for $50 prototype. And at that point, the consumer said, we wanted to do Super Breakout for the VCS. Can we borrow your game? Sure. So they took it upstairs and put it in their hall. And every now and then I go up and, play a game up in the hall. Well, come a year later, I want to take it home. So I go Friday night, I go up, and there's nobody around in the consumer group, which is upstairs in our building. So I get the hand truck and pulled it up, took it into the company truck, drove it home, took the truck back and drove home. I come back Monday and I found out a police report was filed.
Oh, no.
Sold their game. So I go up and said, no, it's my game. No, it's our game. No, it's my game. No, it's our game.
Oh, my God.
No, I lent it to you. It's my game.
My God.
Oh, my gosh.
It's hilarious.
Let's see. Let's take another game. Steel Talons. I've got a couple interesting stories.
Yeah,
First of all, I went down to Fort Ord and we actually flew a real flight simulator.
That's cool.
Sort of check out how things are done in real world. And I found out later that the FBI came and was checking on Atari. because they thought we'd simulated the elevator on the Apache. And of course, I have 240 polygons. I'm not simulating anything. It's fixed elevator in the helicopter. And also they came and interviewed, I think, the guy that showed us, they let us use the simulator down in Fort Ord. And he said, I think to quote the words I heard was, it's my facility. I can do goddamn whatever I please.
That's what I say every day.
Another interesting story. There's two other stories with the Steel Talons. When I went to field test it, we put it out, field test, which is out in a real arcade. So I stood around a while, and the guy came up, put his money in. First time he got shot, he practically jumped off his seat. And, it was really a loud whacker. And I found out later we were overdriving the voltage on the knocker. So it was much more powerful than it should have been. So, yes, it probably really felt that. And a week later, I went to check collections. And the operator there allowed me to take collections. And if you've ever seen the cabinet, you have to hold your arm 90 degrees out, and crawl down on your hands and knees and lift the coin box vertically and then pull it out through the coin door.
Right.
So I get in, open the coin door, reach in. I can't budge the damn coin box. I mean, I literally can't budge it at all. So I have to stick my head in there and I, use two hands. And finally I realized it's so full of coins you can't lift it. It's 40 some pounds.
It exceeded your muscular ability.
That's right. And so we had to put a little note that you've never seen this before in cabinet. It says, we ask you to please empty the coin box every 2 or 3 days. Otherwise, you won't be able to get it out.
That's funny. I hear stories like that from the Golden Age all the time, though. Like Asteroids in particular, when it was released, was a problem. And football had a problem not only with it being popular, but also the trackball had to be recalled and redesigned because, it was falling apart.
Well, it was pinching people.
Yeah.
Centipede is the one that had problems with the. Well, let me tell you a story about some of the controls.
Okay.
Asteroids, for example, the buttons you use to fire and move would sometimes not work. And the reason is there were 2 ball joints that would make contact, and it actually carbonized, and so it would not make contact. So what they actually had to do is put basically a scissors in. So when it did, it would actually push and actually rub the carbon off. And so it was 2 sharp edges, 2 knife blades.
Wow.
So we had to redesign the switches for that. Centipede, the trackball had problems because the trackball was used so frequently that it actually dug a groove in the 2 rollers.
Oh yeah. Football did the same thing though. Football.
Yeah, we've seen it, but it takes 30 years for us.
Yeah, so. Exactly.
So they actually had to redesign that to, I think, harder metal or something, so it would actually work.
I used to keep the.
Other interesting things about the Centipede, because we only had like an 8-bit counter, and we read the counter you could spin the. I think you've seen this probably in some of the spinners too. If you spin them real fast, the thing would jitter instead of going forward.
Yeah.
The reason is because it would go, 0 up to 7 and up, and they would read 0 again.
Right.
So it would figure it would not do anything.
Yeah.
And 0 1 0 1 when it's really doing 8 or 9. And so I had smarts in Centipede, I think, and others that if you're at 7 and you see a 0, it's probably not stopped. Treat it like an 8.
Right.
And so, make it go faster. Because I'm reading it fast enough at 4 milliseconds that if you stop it, it's going to, I will see it slow down before it actually gets 0.
Great.
So there are all sorts of stories about, things we had to deal with.
We had one question from the chat that said, hey, for Ed, are there any games that are out there that you worked on, but your name is not on them?
Well, Atari Football had no names on it at all.
Sure.
And I just did the plays and stuff like that. Video Pinball had no names on it whatsoever. And Asteroids had no names on it whatsoever.
Yeah.
It wasn't until, high score tables that you'd actually start seeing initials. And even then, I don't think until I got to consoles or something before my name actually shows up on any games.
Were there any games?
Have my name. It has my initials. But...
Right. Were there any games that you started, but then you had to move on to do something else, and then somebody else kind of finished it off, or?
I did. I was doing for a while there, but like every other game I put into production. So I'd start one, and it would go to production, and I'd start something else, and I said, "Oh, this game sucks," and I'd kill it. And there are things like Roadrunner, which I tried to kill, and they wouldn't let me. I didn't send me to port it, and I said, "No."
Which is like super.
Roadrunner
is
other
like
games that I started in. And there was one before I left Atari that was a shooter. Oh. So I'd done the gun shooter and all like that. And so I don't think anybody finished that up. I think it just died.
Roadrunner is highly sought after.
Roadrunner, I'd have to say there are no other games I can think of.
People love Roadrunner now, though. It seems like it's the perfect addition to the System 1 collection. You have to get that, and what's the other rare one? I have it, actually.
I never saw the video disc version, so what I'd do is whenever you kill my Coyote, I would cut to the appropriate cartoon that would actually show you the Chuck Jones cartoon.
Oh my gosh,
the Coyote getting wiped out.
That would be so amazing. Cool. And I love that you say Chuck Jones, because there are some Roadrunner cartoons that are not Chuck Jones that are not as good.
No, I actually had him come up and talk to the artists.
Oh, that's cool.
So he actually did some autographed stuff for us.
Speaking of which, so Chuck Jones, you met him. Did you meet other celebrities while you were at Atari?
Harrison Ford for Indiana Jones, maybe?
Yeah, I met Spielberg.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and he came in and was checking out games. This was back, and we were doing some of his, Raiders of the Lost Ark stuff. So he was stopping by with, what's her name? Kaufman? Who am I thinking of? I forget her name. She's also a producer in her own right. She was with Spielberg at the time.
Kathleen Kennedy, maybe?
It must have been.
Right. She now runs
Kate Capshaw?
No, that's Spielberg's wife.
I know. But she was popular then.
True.
I mean, come on. She was popular.
Checking for coffins.
So yes, I've met some, but mostly I keep a low key and sort of leave. The management of Midway would come through and.
My opinion is that everybody's a person, and you have to treat them like that. So, Ed, you're just a regular guy.
You got that
right. Who plays bridge and is retired and played and did some really awesome shit. I mean, I love the fact that we're getting to talk to you right now, and I just want to thank you for being on the show. I want to reach out to the chat. I want to reach out to Mark and Brian. What else do we have to ask this gentleman before we let him go?
Somebody asked me if I've ever been on a movie.
Yeah.
Let's ask that question.
Let's go.
Besides things like this.
Yeah.
Did Ed Rotberg ever tell you about the set of commercials we did for CoinOp?
No.
Oh.
Well,
we're gonna have to.
Atari would have these quarterly meetings. We go in and they're, like this big ballroom at like a Hilton or something, and there's like 34 tables, and there's 2 coin-operated tables, and the whole meeting is showing these latest consumer commercials. They're going to show on TV all the new products. The hype for consumer. Nothing about CoinOp, despite the fact that most of the money they're made off of are CoinOp ports of our titles, and stuff like this. So we decided we'd do a bunch of commercials. So I was in one of the skits that we did, and we actually chickened out. We decided not to show them to our company. So we were down on Pebble Beach, and we had the management of Time Warner there, and a bunch of bigwigs and spouses of the bigwigs and stuff, and they decided to show it there. And so they got to the part where I was playing, and you have to understand, I was in a white T-shirt, with cigarettes rolled up in my sleeve and reached back. I had actually Vaseline in my hair, and I'll never do that again. That's bad.
Oh, that's not good.
You can't get that stuff out. But anyway, when I showed up, I hear this gap out of the audience. That's Ed Logg.
Yeah.
Because, I was Mr. Straight Lace, and here's this.
What about any interactions with actors, either television or movie?
No, I can't say I have.
Okay.
There's a question from the chat. One of the chatters was asking, said he had spoken with your son and said you'd made some games based on his interests. He said at the time he's into Dungeons and Dragons and Gauntlet was made. Are there? Yep.
That's exactly the impetus. My son was into D&D big time, and he wanted me to do a D&D game. And I could not figure out how to do a D&D game until I saw the ST game Dandy. And I put 2 and 2 together and said, oh, man, can I do a D&D game now?
Yeah.
So Robin Ziegler, who was working at Atari, and I sat down and we did a full concept using all the D&D artwork. We could get our hands in and do a prototype. I still have that a game design proposal. But that was at the time that Atari was getting into layoffs, and Robin Ziegler, I was working on another project at the time, and we didn't have the hardware to do Gauntlet, of course. So between the time of finishing my project that I was working on, Robin Ziegler got laid off, and the engineer finally got around to getting the time to design the hardware. That I had to do a second game proposal for Gauntlet. But yeah, that was a game idea that he tried to get me to do, and I'm sure that's what the chat person was referring to.
Were there any other games that he inspired or helped with, or?
I can't think of anything else that he drove me in the right direction.
So, one question I didn't ask is, Centipede came out. Donna and you worked on that. You sort of handed it off to her, but then Millipede comes along.
Right.
And that's kind of your baby.
Yes, it is.
So
it's gone at that point.
So tell me what advancements in Millipede that you were like super excited about.
I wanted to do add a few extra characters. You see the different swarms that would come down. I wanted to do swarms.
Yeah, it was like almost like Centipede meets Galaga.
Highlight the area that the player was in so you could see it actually where you were at. Because a lot of times you couldn't tell you were on the bottom, and Centipede come by would nail you because you're 1 pixel too high.
Oh, right.
Sure.
Things like that. And so I wanted to do a few extra things. Break up the mushroom patterns with using Conway's Game of Life. And then Mark Cerny, I think at the time, was hounding me. When are you going to get that in? When are you going to get that in? I said, look, I'm busy doing other things. You want to do it? I'll stick it in. So he wrote the code for that, and I think he wrote the code for the Attractplex, showing all the different new characters and stuff.
Yeah, that's cool. I like the DDT aspect also.
Yeah.
It
was all the idea to sort of break the thing up and get. It's like a superpower, but
It's almost like Centipede meets Galaga, because there's all these things flying down at you every so often, which made it much more interesting.
Well, the other thing too, I think, is you could start Millipede off at a higher level, and
Yes.
that would allow me to shorten the game times, for a quarter. So in essence, trying to get more money into the game, but allow you to start at a higher score.
And that was a tactic of things like Tempest as well, right?
Yeah, I think Tempest did that initially.
But I think that
Tempest did that initially.
One of the great things about that, I talked to a lot of people that do the Multipede machines now, and they have both Centipede and Millipede running. And one of the things that they love about it is Millipede's like a trainer for Centipede. If you get good at Millipede, you could be really good at Centipede. Yeah.
Hey, so you mentioned Conway's Game of Life.
Yes.
It's very interesting. I know that there was also something else that he had done. Gosh, I'm trying to figure out what it was again.
Well, I should point out that a lot of the reasons I knew about that is I actually went to what's the Stanford professor that he actually had Conway over as a guest speaker. Come on. Very famous lecturer who did a bunch of books on computer algorithms. Come on, what's his name?
Huh.
I have his book somewhere. Let me see if I can find it.
Couldn't be John.
It's Knuth.
Oh, Knuth.
Don Knuth. I went to Don Knuth's house, and he had Conway over, and he was explaining Games of Life and how it worked, and gliders, and static states, and the whole world, and it was really interesting. So I figured, when I got around to Millipede, I said, I can do that for the mushrooms.
Yeah.
It's Game of Life perfectly.
That's awesome. Oh man, I have a lot to learn. This is amazing.
So, another question from the chat was there any driving force behind a 3-inch trackball in Millipede versus a 2-inch trackball in Centipede?
Good question.
I
like
don't
that.
remember why the impetus for that, but I do remember, going to a smaller trackball on Centipede because I had specifically asked for that, because your arm gets very fatigued with Atari football.
Sure.
And with Centipede, you're going to be constantly rolling right and left. So I need something easy to roll, not something that's going to have any momentum to it necessarily, but something that's going to be easy to roll and smaller, of course.
So maybe Millipede was a good happy in between.
I don't know why Millipede had a larger trackball at this point.
It's not that much bigger, and I don't know that it makes it. I actually prefer the smaller trackball on Centipede myself. Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, it works well. Surreal Number was the other thing that I think I was trying to think of that Conway had come up with. It did not seem to lend itself to Centipede, though. So
no, I don't know anything about that.
No, it almost looks like the castles in Tetris. Oddly, it's weird. Yeah.
Well, I just want to say, we've gone well over our hour with you, and I want to thank you for being on the show. We've squeezed in a lot. I would love to have you back on the show. It's been an honor to have you on the show, Ed.
Do the people know all the games I've worked on? I think I sent you an email list.
You sure did, and I want to rattle them off here because I think it's important. So, 1978 Super Breakout, 1979 Video Pinball, Atari Football II, 4-player football, and I know you had Project Leader, whatever.
I was just Project Leader on those
right.
two, yes.
But still good enough.
1979 Asteroids.
Yep.
And there is a really great VCS port of it. It's fantastic. 1981 Centipede with Dona Bailey. 1981 VCS Othello. You worked on a VCS game.
Yeah, I did it at home after hours.
I love it.
Here's an interesting story, Vic.
Go ahead.
Atari, I was the old man at Atari. I was 30 years old.
Right.
But you're still the best dressed, as ever.
Okay. But anyway, I had kids at home, and
yeah.
So I was sort of an 8:30 to 5:30 type of guy. I wouldn't stay hours. But it got later on, and certainly when I had consumer stuff, like Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah.
I remember one night I'm sitting there working away trying to finish something up, and I got a phone call. Hello, it's my wife. Where are you? You know what time it is? Oh yeah, it's 2:00. I'll be right home.
I love it.
So it got when you get to consumer games, it's ludicrous.
So
it's 7 days a week,
so
10 hours a day.
Didn't you tell me that your boss is like, "What are you doing over there?"
Oh yeah, when I was doing Othello, they'd found a bug, so I was in patching it on a black box just to test it out. And he walked by and he looked over and I had VCS Othello up. And he said, "What are you doing?" Finishing the cartridge. But it was a game that I could just, they said we could sell it as a 2K, and I said, "Well, can I get this into 2K? I can't have any look ahead because that would take too long. I can't do alpha beta pruning or anything fancy. I do a table lookup. So I do a table lookup for that game. That's all it is. The kernel takes up 3/4 of the EEPROM at least, and probably more. So trying to do the rest of the game in just a few hundred bytes. So I did a table lookup, and so I took Carol Shaw's checker code and did Othello at home overnight.
I was always like, I wonder if Othello's related to Go in any way. Maybe they could have done a Go version on the VCS. But which would be funny because Atari, blah blah blah. So 1982, Millipede, which I love because the artwork is insane. Did you have anything to? Did you have any input on the artwork on that game?
Well, I mean, describing what the characters were, yes, but I actually had real artists doing the artwork at that point. I was not doing it. On
the side art is just such a departure from everything that Atari had done.
But I like the side artwork on Millipede.
I do too. Yeah. It's kind of crazy.
I actually like the white cabinet too.
Yeah, it's neat.
I did not propose that. That was done, and I liked it.
I love that. 1985 and 1986, Gauntlet and Gauntlet II with Bob Flanagan.
Yes.
1987, Xybots, which we mentioned earlier, also with Bob. And 1989, Tengen's Tetris for the NES. I love the NES.
Well, there's an interesting story about that, because after we released it, we actually sold quite a bit, and then we got an injunction to, not stop selling them, but we heard stories at the local Blockbuster, people would rent them, say they lost and paid the $50, and then sold it on eBay for $150, $200.
That's crazy.
So basically, all the video stores lost all their versions of Tetris. There's another interesting story, because when I later did games for cable set-top boxes, my boss wanted to do a Tetris version, and I told him, that's a Twitch game, and it doesn't do well because the cable boxes are not Twitch hardware. You Twitch, there's a long latency before you get the
input. Yeah, there is.
So she went to Blue Moon, I think it was in Hawaii, who owned the worldwide rights to it. And so she walked into the meeting, and the president gets up and said, and immediately did his spiel about, Tetris is the greatest game in the world, blah, 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 this and that. And he pointed to the wall and said, that was the best Tetris game ever done. She looks over at it, Tengen Tetris. By the way, the person that did that's going to be doing our version too.
That's awesome.
So I don't know if that helped get our.
I have a timeshare in Hawaii. You can come and hang out with me. So for 18 months you worked at EA, and there was that's kind of fun. You mentioned that earlier, but you were just like, they're not doing anything interesting. I'm done. And then you ended it back up working on Atari ports.
And what year was that? When was that?
It was actually working for Tengen until Midway bought us, and then we became Midway Games. I think 94 or something that Midway bought us.
Yeah. And then 96, you did Wayne Gretzky 3D Hockey, which you're very proud of. 97, N64 San Francisco Rush. 98, N64 Rush 2. 1999, N64 Dreamcast Rush 2049, which is such a great game.
3 years of Rush.
I mean, that's pretty rushing awesome. Yeah. And then 2002, Xbox, GameCube, PlayStation 2 versions of Dr. Muto. It's mind-boggling how much you've worked on. 2005, GenPlay Stack 'em for Verizon. We talked about that. 2005 GenPlay Video Poker for Verizon. Also talked about that. And Pool talked about that. And then 2006 to 2013, before you retired, you did TV Head, Tag Network, working part-time, doing mainly games for cable set-top games.
Yeah, too many games there to list.
Oh, wow.
Probably a dozen and a half games out of that.
I mean,
and those games are, where could I even try to play those cable set-top box games anymore?
I don't know.
You had to be part of the network that licensed our hardware.
Yeah.
Right.
And I know Tag Networks wanted to kill us, which they eventually did, and that's why I retired.
Right.
But they went back to the cable things. We want to take them out. No, you want to take them out. They wouldn't give them up. They wanted to keep them.
Right. I mean, that's a good 7 years or so.
Yeah.
Huh. Wow.
Well,
most
sir,
of those are back in the northeast.
We'd like you to stick with us after our outro, because we always like to say goodbye to our guests in person before we just ditch you.
A 1 minute high five.
1 minute high five after we've done our outro, because Now we have a very important part of the show where we,
Actually, I wanted to get one more comment in from one of the chatters, who friend of the show and somebody who's done some really neat stuff. A guy, Shane, down in Milwaukee, and his guy he works with, Dave, said you were an amazing inspiration to them for a game they made that they've released called Cosmotrons.
It is a fantastic game.
And it's a neat game. They did kind of a retro cabinet on it. There's a number of arcade bars around the country, but he said he was disappointed he didn't get to meet you because we weren't at CAX. They brought it all the way out to California from Milwaukee, but he said that you were an inspiration and thank you. He was one of the comments, so I wanted to make sure I got that in there. Shane's a great guy.
That's awesome.
He does some neat work.
Well, tell him thank you.
Yeah, and if you haven't seen his game, we should get that over to him because it's phenomenal.
What platform is it?
It's so it's on a PC. It runs recognized, but it's essentially it's hard to explain. It's kind of like a Gravatar 4-player competitive battle, and the game has evolved over time where they've got obstacles around the screen. They're shooting each other. Gravity is involved. They have different gravitational objects can pull you in different directions. And one of the neat things they did actually is when you get shot now, at least I thought this was one of the cooler things, your guy falls out of the ship and he can stand on the ground and shoot other players, but you're really done. So you can kind of monkey with the rest of the game going on, which is really cool.
But its roots are in Asteroids. I mean, if you go back far enough.
Right.
Yeah.
Like to me, like Lunar Lander is a sub. I mean, I love gravity games, and it all started back with Asteroids.
So he just was very appreciative.
Yeah.
He wanted to make sure that we said thank you. So.
Well, I think it's about time we wrap up this show.
All right, let's go to those goodbye words that we say.
I don't like this part of the show because then we have to say goodbye to Ed. But you know what the thing is that we can't have him on all night, and I would love to just hang out with. In fact, I do want to hang out with you again. I think it'll be fun. So let's get this going. Ed, hang with us until after the show. We're gonna say a little bit of goodbye to you, and everybody else. This has been the Double R's. That's Arcade Radio.
2DCon is coming up in August. Check it out, 2dcon.net, and join us.
Hey, check out our website, RcadeRadio.com. That is RCADE Radio.com for all of our social media and swagglings.
Yeah.
Call and leave comments at 612-548-GAME. For those of you who can't do the little letters on the phone, that's 4263.
Oh, yeah. It's my turn. So are you enjoying the show? Pick up some Arcade Radio swag over at teespring.com/arcaderadio or consider supporting our Patreon campaign over at patreon.com/arcaderadio.
Hey, subscribe to our YouTube channel and click that notification bell so you will know when we're live. And if there is a Twitch bell, click that Twitch bell too.
I like twitching. Twitching's good.
If you like what you're hearing, consider dropping a 5-star review on Anchor, iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you consume our podcast.
For now, that's going to be it. From the Arcade Radio crew, we hope you had a great time, and we'll see you on the next episode. That's about it. Is that about it?
That's it.
That's about it.
We listen to this music and we relax. Take
our
pants
yes.
off.
Take your pants off.
You can put 'em